Hello, welcome back. It's Saturday. It's a dark, grey day. I did move some boxes away out here, up there. But let's read. Let's read some more. It's 12 noon. I need a minute to go to my bed.
Nuclear warfare. The mushroom cloud over Hiroshima following the detonation of the Little Boy nuclear bomb on the 6th of August 1945. The atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki remain the first and only wartime uses of nuclear weapons in history. Nuclear warfare, also known as atomic warfare, is a military conflict or prepared political strategy that deploys nuclear weaponry. Nuclear weapons are weapons of mass destruction. In contrast to conventional warfare, nuclear warfare can produce destruction in a much shorter time and can have a long-lasting radiological result. A major nuclear exchange would likely have long-term effects, primarily from the fallout released, and could also lead to secondary effects, such as nuclear winter, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, nuclear famine, and societal collapse. 7, 8, 9. A global thermonuclear war with Cold War era stockpiles, or even with the current smaller stockpiles, may lead to various scenarios including extinction of the human species. 10. To date, the only use of nuclear weapons in armed conflict occurred in 1945 with the American atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. On the 6th of August, 1945, a uranium gun-type device, codenamed Little Boy, was detonated over the Japanese city of Hiroshima. 3 days later, on August the 9th, a plutonium implosion-type device, codenamed Fat Man, was detonated over the Japanese city of Nagasaki. Together, these two bombings resulted in the deaths of approximately 200,000 people and contributed to the surrender of Japan, which occurred before any further nuclear weapons could be produced. After World War II, nuclear weapons were also developed by the Soviet Union, 1949, the United Kingdom, 1952, France, 1960, and the People's Republic of China, 1964, which contributed to the state of conflict and extreme tension that became known as the Cold War. In 1974, India, and in 1998, Pakistan, two countries that were openly hostile toward each other, developed nuclear weapons. Israel, 1960s, and North Korea, 2006, are also thought to have developed stocks of nuclear weapons, though it is not known how many. The Israeli government has never admitted nor denied having nuclear weapons, although it is known to have constructed the reactor and reprocessing plant necessary for building nuclear weapons. 11. South Africa also manufactured several complete nuclear weapons in the 1980s, but subsequently became a first country to voluntarily destroy their domestically made weapons stocks and abandon further production. 1990s. 12, 13. Nuclear weapons have been detonated on over 2,000 occasions for testing purposes and demonstrations. 14, 15. After the dissolution of the Soviet Union in 1991 and the resultant end of the Cold War, the threat of Armageddon nuclear war between the two nuclear superpowers was generally thought to have declined. 16. Since then, concern over nuclear weapons has shifted to the prevention of localized nuclear conflicts resulting from nuclear proliferation, and the threat of nuclear terrorism. However, the threat of nuclear war is considered to have resurged after the Russian invasion of Ukraine, particularly with regard to Russian threats to use nuclear weapons during the invasion. 17, 18. Since 1947, the doomsday clock of the Bulletin of the Atomic Scientists has visualized how close the world is to a nuclear war. The doomsday clock reached high points in 1953, when the clock was set to 2 minutes until midnight after the US and the Soviet Union began testing hydrogen bombs, and in 2018, following the failure of world leaders to address tensions relating to nuclear weapons and climate change issues. 19. Since 2023, the clock has been set at 90 seconds to midnight, the closest it has ever been. 20. The most recent advance of the clock's time setting was largely attributed to the risk of nuclear escalation that arose from the Russian invasion of Ukraine. 21. Types of nuclear warfare. The possibility of using nuclear weapons in war is usually divided into two subgroups, each with different effects and potentially fought with different types of nuclear armaments. The first, a limited nuclear war. 22. Sometimes attack or exchange, refers to the controlled use of nuclear weapons, whereby the implicit threat exists that a nation can still escalate their use of nuclear weapons. For example, using a small number of nuclear weapons against strictly military targets could be escalated through increasing the number of weapons used, or escalated through the selection of different targets. Limited attacks are thought to be a more credible response against attacks that do not justify all-out retaliation, such as an enemy's limited use of nuclear weapons. 23. The second, a full-scale nuclear war, could consist of large numbers of nuclear weapons used in an attack aimed at an entire country, including military, economic, and civilian targets. Such an attack would almost certainly destroy the entire economic, social, and military infrastructure of the target nation, and would likely have a devastating effect on Earth's biosphere. 7. 24. Some Cold War strategists such as Henry Kissinger, 25, argue that a limited nuclear war could be possible between two heavily armed superpowers, such as the United States and the Soviet Union. Some predict, however, that a limited war could potentially escalate into a full-scale nuclear war. Others have called limited nuclear war global nuclear holocaust in slow motion, arguing that once such a war took place others would be sure to follow over a period of decades, effectively rendering the planet uninhabitable in the same way that a full-scale nuclear war between superpowers would, only taking a much longer, and arguably more agonizing, path to the same result. Even the most optimistic predictions of the effects of a major nuclear exchange foresee the death of many millions of victims within a very short period of time. Such predictions usually include the breakdown of institutions, government, professional and commercial, vital to the continuation of civilization. The resulting loss of vital affordances, food, water and electricity production and distribution, medical and information services, etc., would account for millions more deaths. More pessimistic predictions argue that a full-scale nuclear war could potentially bring about the extinction of the human race, or at least its near extinction with only a relatively small number of survivors, mainly in remote areas, and a reduced quality of life and life expectancy for centuries afterward. However, such predictions, assuming total war with nuclear arsenals at Cold War highs, have not been without criticism. For such a horrific catastrophe as global nuclear warfare would almost certainly cause permanent damage to most complex life on the planet, its ecosystems and the global climate. 5. A study presented at the annual meeting of the American Geophysical Union in December 2006 asserted that even a small-scale regional nuclear war could produce as many direct fatalities as all of world war and disrupt the global climate for a decade or more. In a regional nuclear conflict scenario in which two opposing nations in the subtropics each used 50 Hiroshima-sized nuclear weapons, see 15 kiloton each, on major population centers, the researchers predicted fatalities ranging from 2.6 million to 16.7 million per country. The authors of the study estimated that as much as 5 million tons of soot could be released, producing a cooling of several degrees over large areas of North America and Eurasia, including most off-grain growing regions. The cooling would last for years and could be catastrophic, according to researchers. 26. Either a limited or full-scale nuclear exchange could occur during an accidental nuclear war, in which use of nuclear weapons is triggered unintentionally. Postulated triggers for this scenario have included malfunctioning early warning devices and forward/or targeting computers, deliberate malfeasance by rogue military commanders, consequences of an accidental straying of warplanes into enemy airspace, reactions to unannounced missile tests during tense diplomatic periods, reactions to military exercises, mistranslated or miscommunicated messages, and others. A number of these scenarios actually occurred during the Cold War, though none resulted in the use of nuclear weapons. 27. Many such scenarios have been depicted in popular culture, such as in the 1959 film On the Beach, the 1962 novel Failsafe, released as a film in 1964, and the film Doctor Strangelove or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love the Bomb, also released in 1964, the film War Games, released in 1983. History 1940s. Atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Mushroom cloud from the atomic explosion over Nagasaki rising 18,000 m, 59,000 feet, into the air on the morning of August 9, 1945. During the final stages of World War II in 1945, the United States conducted atomic raids on the Japanese cities of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the first on the 6th of August, 1945, and the second on August 9, 1945. These two events were the only times nuclear weapons have been used in combat. 28. For 6 months before the atomic bombings, the U.S. 20th Air Force under General Curtis LeMay executed low-level incendiary raids against Japanese cities. The most destructive air raid to occur during the process was not the nuclear attacks, but the Operation Meeting House raid on Tokyo. On the night of the 9th of March, 2010, 1945 Operation Meeting House commenced and 334 Boeing B-29 Superfortress bombers took off to raid, with 279 of them dropping 1,665 tons of incendiaries and explosives on Tokyo. The bombing was meant to burn wooden buildings, and indeed the bombing caused fire that created a 50 m/s wind, which is comparable to tornadoes. Each bomber carried 6 tons of bombs. A total of 381,300 bombs, which amount to 1,783 tons of bombs, were used in the bombing. Within a few hours of the raid, it had killed an estimated 100,000 people and destroyed 41 square kilometers, 16 square mi of the city and 267,000 buildings in a single night, the deadliest bombing raid in military aviation history other than the atomic raids on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. 29, 30, 31, 32. By early August 1945, an estimated 450,000 people had died as the US had intensely firebombed a total of 67 Japanese cities. In late June 1945, as the US wrapped up the 2.5-month Battle of Okinawa, which cost the lives of 260,000